My dad never meant to leave the call open. I had phoned from my grandmother's kitchen to ask about a small piece of paperwork when I heard the faint rustle of his jacket, followed by my mother's voice, then his, clear as if they were standing beside me. She's a burden. Always has been. I froze, my hands still inside the drawer I was searching through. They kept talking, laughing, not discussing plans I was clearly never meant to hear. Plans centered around the house my grandmother left me. I didn't interrupt and I didn't call back. I stayed quiet just long enough to decide how I wanted the rest of this story to go. Growing up, I learned early that affection in our home came with conditions. Our place sat on a narrow street in a working-class suburb outside the city. Peeling paint, thin walls, and a kitchen table that wobbled no matter how many cardboard shims my dad shoved under a leg. Harold and Marilyn called it home, but it never felt like one. Every argument, slammed cabinet, or reminder of their sacrifices settled into the house like smoke. You think money grows on trees? My dad would snap any time I needed something for school. Be grateful we keep a roof over your head. I tried to be grateful. But every Friday after school, I watched the clock until I could escape to Grandma Lorraine's home across town. Her street was quiet, her porch wide, and her garden always smelled faintly of lavender and warm soil. She greeted me with a hug that didn't tighten and asked about my week, like my answer actually mattered. Her home felt like air after being underwater. In her house, I learned that gentleness wasn't weakness, and silence didn't have to be sharp. She taught me how to plant flowers, how to budget, and how to build a life piece by piece instead of resenting the world for not handing one over. "You're capable, Annabelle," she'd say. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." When she passed suddenly, grief hollowed me out, but the reading of her will shocked everyone else. She left her fully paid house, worth nearly $900,000, to me, and left my parents a small cash amount that they burned through within weeks. After that, they started calling my home the family house, as if the deed was optional. My mother walked through rooms criticizing paint colors I'd chosen. My father dragged his old recliner into the living room and planted it there like a flag. I told myself they were grieving. Letting them stay for a little while seemed like the right thing. But a little while became years. They never paid a cent toward bills or upkeep, but they always had opinions. They talked about renovations I had never approved and hinted that some families share everything. When they planned a dream trip to Europe, they casually suggested using the house's equity to fund it. "You're doing well," my mother said, scraping her fork on her plate. "It's time you give back." I didn't take out a loan, but I still paid for most of their trip out of guilt. Guilt so old it felt automatic. They left the country smiling in new scarves, promising souvenirs. I stayed home, trying to convince myself that generosity wasn't the same as being taken advantage of. The day everything changed was so normal it almost felt unreal. I'd spent the morning showing property listings and came home to find a slow drip under the kitchen sink. A tiny leak my dad claimed he fixed months ago. I needed the warranty information for the faucet, one of the few things he'd actually installed. So I called him. Just a simple question, nothing that should have blown my life apart. He answered from somewhere loud, clinking glasses, street noise, laughter. "We're heading to dinner," he said, annoyed. "Check the drawer in the den, under kitchen." I thanked him and told him to enjoy his evening. He muttered something I couldn't catch. Then came the sound of fabric rustling, footsteps, and my mother's muffled voice. I waited for the click. There should have been a click. Instead, I heard her ask, "Who was that?" "Annabelle," he replied, like my name exhausted him. Always something wrong with the house. My breath froze. They hadn't hung up. "Well," my mother sighed, "that's what happens when someone gets handed a house they didn't earn. Your mother should have left it to us. We would have used it wisely." I gripped the counter. My grandmother had trusted me on purpose. Hearing them rewrite that truth hit something deep. My father's voice sharpened. "Once we're back, we're going to sit her down about our retirement. She needs to understand that house is our future. It's ridiculous. It's only in her name." My chest tightened. I'd always suspected resentment, but never imagined they had a plan. My mother lowered her voice, barely. "She feels guilty so easily. Just push a little. She'll sign whatever we need. Mention medical bills. That always works. My stomach dropped. That wasn't concern. It was strategy. And if she pushes back, my father added, remind her what we sacrificed. She owes us. By next year, the deed will have our names on it. My ears rang. My vision narrowed, but they kept talking. She's always been a burden, he said, as if finally stating a long-held truth. Their shared laugh snapped something clean inside me. I don't remember ending the call, just sinking to the floor, the dripping faucet tapping a slow rhythm as every memory rearranged itself. Every criticism, every guilt trip, every reminder of sacrifice. None of it had been love. It was leverage. I replayed their words until humiliation turned into heat. Then that heat sharpened into clarity. If they saw me as a burden, then I didn't owe them anything. I stood, wiped my face, and opened my laptop. I didn't confront them or call back. I did something far more threatening in their eyes. I started planning. For 3 days, I moved through life quietly. I called in sick with a fever I didn't have because I couldn't trust myself not to break down. Every time I tried to make coffee or answer an email, one sentence replayed, "She's always been a burden." Said so casually, it might as well have been the weather. By the fourth morning, the numbness cracked. I opened my laptop and typed one name, Vivian Hale, a family property attorney I'd worked with through clients. Sharp, calm, exact. She didn't react when I said the deed was solely mine, or that my parents had lived there rent-free for years. But when I repeated the words I'd overheard, her jaw tightened slightly. "You have no legal obligation to house them," she said. "The property is yours. Their living there gives them no ownership. And if you want to end the arrangement, document everything and don't warn them until you're ready." Her words felt like someone opened a window in a room I hadn't realized I was suffocating in. That afternoon, I called Ethan Shaw, one of the few colleagues who always treated me as an equal. "I need a discreet sale," I told him. "No listing, no signs. Fast." He didn't ask why. "I know 2 off-market buyers looking in your area. We can aim for around 980 if the timing works." Exactly the number I needed. Once the dominoes were set, I moved quickly. I walked through each room with a notebook, sorting everything into 3 lists: mine, theirs, and uncertain. I didn't want even one dispute later. Boxes lined the hardwood floors, my items packed neatly for the movers, their things stacked separately as a plan formed in my mind. I rented a storage unit under their names and paid 6 months in advance. Crew to transfer their belongings on the same day. My own boxes were headed to a furnished, short-term apartment 2 hours away. Then came the rest of the tasks. New bank accounts, updated passwords, a new phone number, a new email. Each step felt like cutting another tie that had held me to my parents for most of my life. The night before the movers arrived, I walked through the house slowly. The bare walls echoed in a way that made everything feel strangely distant. Out in the garden, the flowers Grandma Lorraine taught me to plant were just beginning to bloom. I knelt down and touched one of the petals. "I'm not the burden you said I was," I whispered, unsure if I was talking to them or promising something to myself. The next morning, as the truck carrying my boxes drove away, I didn't look back. I had disappeared quietly, legally, entirely. My parents landed on a warm Thursday afternoon in early fall, the kind of day filled with soft sun and the faint smell of dry leaves. I knew their flight time because they'd emailed it earlier, expecting me to pick them up. I imagined them stepping off the plane refreshed from wine tastings and tours, pulling luggage covered in stickers from places I'd never been. They had no idea what they were returning to. At exactly 4:12 p.m., my old neighbor Mrs. Dawson texted me one line, "They're here." I sat in my car outside my new apartment, 2 hours away, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned pale. I didn't have to be at the house. I knew exactly how things were unfolding. They would pull into the driveway, still chatting about their trip. They would notice my car wasn't there and assume I was out. They would drag their bags to the door, balancing shopping bags filled with souvenirs I'd paid for indirectly. Then my father would take out his key. He would turn it and hear nothing but a dull click. The thought steadied me. I closed my eyes and breathed in the stillness of my new place. Later, Mrs. Dawson called. I answered immediately. "Annabelle, they're furious," she whispered, holding back a laugh. Your dad tried the key 4 times. Your mom is pounding on the door like someone's inside. I could picture it clearly. Their confusion, then disbelief, shifting into anger. What now? I asked, surprised at how calm I sounded. They're checking the windows. Oh, your dad is saying you must have changed the locks without telling them. Annabelle, this is something to witness. It was. And it was only the beginning. An hour later, my first voicemail arrived. Annabelle, what is going on? The key doesn't work. Call me back immediately. 5 minutes later, one from my mother. Honey, this must be a mistake. We're worried. Where are you? Why is the house empty? Please call. Not an ounce of responsibility. Not a trace of reflection. Just shock that their control wasn't working. Then came the message I had expected. We found your little note. A burden did this? Really? Is that a joke? You cannot sell our home behind our backs. Expect a lawyer. Every sentence dripped with entitlement. Every word confirmed my decision. They didn't call again that night, but I knew more was coming. The next morning at 10 a.m., my office texted, Your parents are here. They're yelling. The boss asked them to leave. Do you need support? Heat rushed through me. Even after everything, they still believed shame would bring me back in line. I called the office to apologize, but my boss said gently, Take whatever time you need, Annabelle. They won't be allowed back inside. It was the first time someone besides my grandmother had taken my side completely. That evening, my new number, known only to a few people, rang. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Tomorrow, my father's voice said, controlled but sharp. 10. Maple Street Cafe. If you don't show, we're coming to your workplace again and we won't be polite. He hung up before I replied. My pulse beat hard, but fear didn't follow. Something steadier did. Clarity, the same clarity I'd felt during that open call. This time, I wouldn't meet them as their child. I would meet them as a woman finally committed to protecting herself. The next morning, I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes late on purpose. The place was busy, espresso steaming, utensils clinking, conversations blending together. A public and safe place. Harold and Marilyn sat in the corner booth. My mother looked smaller. My father looked angrier. Both stiffened when they saw me. You finally decided to show up, my father snapped. I set my phone on the table, letting the act speak for itself. I'm here, I said, but I won't be yelled at. Say what you need to say. What did you do to our house? My mother burst out. Why would you sell it without telling us? We lived there. It was never your home, I said evenly. You lived there because I allowed it, and you repaid it by planning to take it. My father leaned forward. We were talking about our future. You misunderstood. Before he could finish, I tapped my phone. Their voices played loudly. She's a burden. Once she signs the house over, use guilt. She owes us. My mother covered her mouth. My father went pale, then flushed red. How dare you record us? You called me, I said. You forgot to hang up. I heard everything, and it showed me exactly where I stand with you. My mother began to cry, just enough to look convincing. Once, it would have worked. Not anymore. I paid for the bills, the home repairs, and a vacation I couldn't afford, and you still saw me as something to manage, so here's what happens now. Their tears stopped. Their breathing tightened. I'm done. No more money, no more support, no more guilt. If you show up at my job again, I'll pursue legal action. If you show up at my home, security will handle it. If you keep contacting me aggressively, my attorney will. You can't cut us out, my father hissed. I'm not cutting you out, I said, standing. You pushed me out years ago. I'm just finally walking away. My mother trembled. Where will we go? What are we supposed to do? That, I said calmly, is something you'll have to figure out. I picked up my phone, slipped it into my bag, and left the booth. They didn't reach for me. They didn't call my name. When I stepped into the cool fall air, I didn't look back. In the following weeks, the silence felt almost strange. No calls, no emails, no sudden appearances. Just quiet. Heavy at first, then peaceful. I moved through my new townhouse like someone learning how to breathe normally for the first time. It was smaller, simpler, but completely mine. No tension, no old recliner, no footsteps that made my chest tighten. I returned to work with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My clients noticed, my boss noticed, and so did I. Without constant emotional pressure, I finally had energy for work, friends, and myself. Therapy helped too. Dr. Caroline Brooks guided me through the blurred lines of my past and taught me words I'd never said aloud. financial abuse, emotional manipulation, coercive guilt. Naming them didn't erase them, but it took away their power. One afternoon, while sorting old files, I found a small envelope in my grandmother's handwriting. I'd read the letter before, but this time her words felt new. Never doubt your worth. Never let anyone take from you what you've earned. For the first time, I believed her. When the local community center asked me to lead a workshop for first-time homebuyers on protecting themselves financially, I said yes, right away. Sharing what I had learned the hard way felt like repairing something in me. I wasn't the burden. I was the person who finally chose to set the weight down. A year later, I stood in my new garden, smaller than my grandmother's but blooming just the same. The wind was gentle, the sky wide, and for the first time, my life felt like it actually fit. I didn't know if my parents would ever change, and I wasn't waiting for them. Peace didn't come from fixing them. It came from choosing myself. If you've ever had to walk away to protect your well-being, you're not alone. Share your experience in the comments, and don't forget to like and